The first inkling that these fellows in this camp had of this coming crisis was to look up at that skyline and to see a great finger of black come over the skyline at the notch. There were 4,500 Zulus, 1.5 miles west of Isandlwana.
David spoke about the battles as famous Zulu victories, not famous English defeats. And he popularized the great strength of Zulu culture, military strategy, for example. I mean, that's what we need in this country, is, you know, we're swamped with cynicism and racism. David was one person I knew who wasn't.
He loved people, all people, and I think that was a major part of who he was. And I think that's something he would want us to continue. We don't want any racial hatred to come of this, because that would just violate everything he stood for.
After David died, I was faced with a very probably difficult choice whether to pack up and go, take the boys and go live somewhere else. But I chose to stay.
When David died, a number of his mates got together and raised some financial support to continue the work that Nicky and David done in developing schools in the area.
Education of these people from this impoverished area was a cause very close to David's heart, because he firmly believed that without education there was no hope. So I was able to carry on with the help of the board of the David Rattray Foundation to do bigger and better projects, as I believe that giving more people the chance of a good education will hopefully lessen the chance of something like this happening to somebody else.
In the area they live, it's called Umzanyati, a study by the Business Trust shows that there's 500,000 people that live there. 80% of them live on less than 20,000 rand a year, which is in poverty. 44% of the population have no education. 15% of people 20 years and older have matric, grade 12. If we think we've got difficulties now, if we don't do something about it in 10 or 15 or 20 years' time, it's going to get much worse. And we have to start somewhere.
What we do is look at creating bridges between schools and corporate organisations.
I started Together Schools about a year ago.
All the improvements in the school that are tackled need to be aligned to the teaching.
So we actually assist the educators in understanding, and in your school I think it's particularly an FET school.
Of course, there's the library, the fencing and the garden. Did we do something in the garden? Yeah.
And we stop.
If we want to make sure we all have a stable future in this country, we have to do something, and we have to do something innovative. So if we can get a corporate adoption model going in our schools, we can use David's fame and network to popularize that.
Say hello. Hello.
We visited the local schools. A number of our board members got together and went with a chief and a local businessman and had a look at on the ground to see what the needs were. It's very rural, there are large distances. The physical infrastructure was dilapidated in many cases. There are a couple of schools that need to be rebuilt. One of our board members, Ben Henderson, did an inventory of the needs according to the headmaster of 13 schools. We then realized that we actually needed to go into a much more detailed survey, and we've now established a baseline score sheet. At least we know in future, once we've implemented our programs, we can assess how well we're doing against a baseline score sheet. If I was to categorize the general issues were learner and teacher commitment, lack of access to nutrition, sanitation, running water, and security. Basics, absolute basics. A lot of time and effort is focused around tuition, maths and science extra lessons, for example, because there's such a dearth of qualified learners in that area. But if a student walked 20 k's to school and only gets fed at 10 o'clock, the best maths teacher in the world is not going to get anything into his head. So if we can address those problems in a sustainable way, we believe we'll add considerably to the ability of those schools to deliver education. We will be engaging in a series of workshops with the 6 schools that we've done in-depth analysis of. We will ask the schools themselves to come up with what their plan is for sustainable solutions to those, and then we'll ask them to apply for funding. If we can address the basics, you'll raise the dignity of the institution. And I think will flow from that will improve, the learner and teacher commitment will improve. Because if you show that you care, you know, that's a tremendously empowering concept. Between he and Nicky, they raised and implemented 1.6 million rands worth of projects while he was alive. Imagine every individual in this country had to make that sort of commitment, the difference we could make.